She looked me in the eyes, and I knew I had already lost her. Not to someone else, but to the version of myself I had failed to become. It didn't happen overnight. These things never do. One day, it's her laugh that sounds a little forced. Another, it's the way she doesn't ask if I'm hungry when she orders food. And then, eventually, she just stops looking at me like I matter. I used to think love was enough. That being a good guy, faithful, hardworking, putting food on the table, was all it took to keep her. But love isn't enough. It never is. And I learned that the hard way. It was winter. Cold outside. Even colder inside me. She was packing a small suitcase, not in anger, not in a rush, just finishing something she had started long ago. A quiet ending to a story neither of us had the courage to rewrite. And I remember saying something stupid like, "Can we talk about this?" And she just looked at me and said, "We've talked. You just weren't listening." And that was the moment everything broke. Not just the relationship. Me. But sometimes, a man needs to fall apart before he can become someone worth staying for. I started asking questions I had never dared ask. Who was I, really, without her? Without the comfort of someone who believed in me more than I did? I thought I was a provider, a protector, but when she needed my presence, I gave her distractions. When she needed depth, I gave her silence. When she needed a man, I gave her a boy hiding behind routine and excuses. And then came the night that changed me. A stranger at a bar, an old man with tired eyes, overheard me talking to myself. Yeah, I was that guy, drunk on regret, whispering into a glass of whiskey. He sat beside me and said, "She didn't leave you. She left the man you became." I didn't argue. I just listened. Because finally, I knew someone was saying the thing I had refused to say to myself. He went on. Women don't leave men who lead themselves first. Who know what they want. Who carry peace, not chaos. You lost her the moment you stopped being that man. And I asked, then how do I become the man she'll never leave? He looked at me for a long moment and said, you start by becoming the man you won't walk away from. That night, I walked home without taking a cab. Through the freezing air. Through the silence of a city that didn't care. And I realized, it wasn't about getting her back. It was about getting myself back. You see, being the man she'll never leave isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Being honest. Being grounded in who you are and who you're becoming. It's about leading with strength, not force, but clarity. With softness, not weakness, but empathy. It's about learning to protect not only her, but also her trust. A woman doesn't leave because you forgot the flowers or missed dinner. She leaves because she feels alone while sitting right next to you. Because the space you once filled with attention and intention is now just filled with silence and shadows. I had to rebuild myself from the ground up. I had to kill the victim in me, the man who blamed circumstances, the man who said, this is just how I am. No. That man didn't deserve her. And truth be told, he didn't even deserve himself. So I got up at 5. I trained my body. Not to look good, but to feel strong again. I sat with my thoughts. Wrote them down. All the ugly ones. I stopped lying. To others. To myself. I started listening when people spoke, really listening, like their words were blueprints for the man I could be. I read the ancient words of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. I carved their ideas into my soul like scripture. Control what you can. Accept what you cannot. Choose virtue over pleasure. Choose action over complaint. Choose discipline over comfort. I stopped chasing her shadow and started chasing excellence. Not success. Excellence. The quiet dignity of a man who shows up. Who follows through. Who doesn't need applause, just a mirror he can look into at the end of the day. And slowly, things began to shift. Not with her. With me. That's when you become the man she never wants to leave, not because you trap her with guilt or comfort, but because she sees you're going somewhere, and she wants to go there with you. But by then, you've already learned the deeper truth. You don't need her to stay. You want her to, but you don't need her to. Because now you've become a man you'll never abandon again. There's a strange thing that happens when you stop needing approval. You stop bending. You stop shrinking. And suddenly, the world starts to respond to you differently. I began to speak slower. Not because I wanted to sound wiser, but because I had finally started to mean every word. I no longer filled the silence with nervous chatter. I let it breathe. I let it work. Because I had made peace with being alone, and only then did I become someone worth being with. I stopped trying to impress women. I started respecting them. That was new to me. I had confused attention with respect. But they're not the same thing. A woman doesn't need your charm, she needs your presence. Your consistency. She needs to know that when life gets ugly, you won't run, you won't hide behind your phone, or bury yourself in work, or disappear into your moods. She needs a man who can be still. A man who holds the line. But to be that man, you have to train in silence. That's what nobody tells you. You don't become him by accident. You have to wake up early, sweat out the weakness, sit with your fears, strip away every lie you've told yourself, and still show up with your head high. You have to bury the boy who thinks anger makes him powerful. Who thinks silence makes him mysterious. Who thinks control is love. You have to kill him. And when you do, when you finally bury him, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in years. Peace. Not the fake kind that comes from avoiding conflict. I mean real peace. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and not needing anyone to remind you. The kind that builds in the quiet hours, in the cold mornings, in the hard choices made without applause. That peace, it changes how you walk. How you listen. How you look a woman in the eyes and say, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to build something real, if you're ready for that. And suddenly, she listens differently. Because real recognizes real. I started attracting a different kind of woman. Not the ones looking for attention, but the ones looking for integrity. Not the ones chasing validation, but the ones chasing vision. They could feel it on me. That I wasn't chasing them. I was chasing a mission. And it scared some of them. Because when you're a man on a mission, people can't control you. You're not begging to be chosen, you're choosing yourself every day. And from that place of strength, you invite her to walk beside you, not behind you. And the right woman, she won't want you any other way. Because here's the truth, women don't want perfect men. They want present men. They want the kind of strength that doesn't shout, but holds firm. They want to feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally. And safety comes from truth, not performance. Can you tell the truth when it's hard? Can you sit with her when she's crying, without trying to fix her? Can you be angry without becoming cruel? Can you lead, not by domination, but by example? That's what she's watching. Not your income. Not your abs. Not your words. Your character. Every day, she's watching. She's asking herself one question, can I trust him with my heart? And if you've done the work, if you've bled for your own growth, if you've sharpened yourself into a man of depth and discipline, then the answer becomes obvious. Yes. She can trust you. Because you trust yourself. And if she walks away even then, you let her. Because you're no longer the man who begs. You're the man who builds. Who stands. Who leads. With or without her. And that, paradoxically, is what makes her stay. Not the flowers. Not the promises. Not the grand gestures. But the quiet, unwavering, daily demonstration that you are becoming more, not for her, but for yourself. Let me be clear, this isn't about games. This isn't about making her chase you or manipulating emotions. This is about inner gravity. About becoming a mountain, not a wave. Because women don't stay with men who drift, they stay with men who root. And rooting takes time. There were nights I cried in the dark, not because I missed her, but because I missed myself. The version of me I had buried under comfort, under laziness, under the lie that I was doing enough. I wasn't. And deep down, I knew it. But now I do enough, and more. Not to prove anything. Not to win anyone back. But because I have a standard now. A line I don't cross. A level I don't fall beneath. And every day I meet it, I gain a little more self-respect. That's the foundation. That's the path. That's how you become the man she'll never leave. Not by holding her tighter. But by holding yourself accountable. I remember the first time I saw my reflection and didn't look away. Not because I liked what I saw, but because, finally, I wasn't ashamed. I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't making excuses for my life, or blaming my past, or waiting for someone to save me. I had become the man who saved himself. And that, more than anything else, is what changed how people, how women, responded to me. You see, When a man finds peace within himself, he no longer makes chaos for others. When he has structure, he no longer seeks control. When he has discipline, he doesn't need distraction. And women feel that. Without a word. They feel it in the way you sit still in the discomfort. In the way you stay calm when she's emotional. In the way you apologize without defensiveness and protect her without pride. Because here's the real secret, women leave men who are unstable. Not financially. Emotionally. You can be rich, successful, charming, but if your soul is soft, if your word means nothing, if you crumble under pressure, she won't trust you. And without trust, there's no love. Just survival. And survival love is exhausting. So I stopped being unpredictable. I stopped trying to be exciting. I became steady. Present. A man of routine and order. A man who knows when to speak, and when to shut up. When to fight, and when to forgive. I started giving more than I received. Not because I'm a martyr, but because it feels good to give when it comes from strength. I became generous without resentment, because I no longer gave to be appreciated. I gave to lead. That's the key, leadership. If you want to be the man she'll never leave, you must lead. Not control. Not demand. Lead. In your values. In your actions. In your tone. In your consistency. Even when she's doubting. Even when she's distant. You lead by example, not emotion. And leadership is lonely. You won't always get praised. You won't always be understood. Sometimes you'll be hated for doing what's right. But that's the cost. That's the price of strength. I lost people when I changed. Friends who preferred the version of me that drank too much and laughed too loud and lived without responsibility. Women who liked the thrill of inconsistency. The drama. The emotional roller coasters. I let them go. I blessed their path and focused on mine. Because a man who tries to keep everyone is a man who loses himself. And I had already made that mistake once. Never again. So I built my core values like a fortress. I made integrity non-negotiable. I stopped chasing comfort and started chasing clarity. I wrote down what kind of man I wanted to be, not someday, but now. And I lived by that list every day. I became careful with my words. Not soft, precise. Because words mean nothing if they're not backed by behavior. And I made sure mine were. And over time, I began to attract someone new. She didn't fall for me instantly. She watched. Quietly. She tested my patience, my calm, my presence. She asked questions that weren't just about me, but about how I treat people. About how I handle failure. About how I sit with pain. And because I had done the work, I passed. She didn't stay because I promised her the world. She stayed because I had built a world inside me that she could trust. She stayed because my silence felt safe, not empty. Because my strength didn't overpower, it made space for her own. And this time, I didn't need her to stay. I chose her. Not from fear, not from habit, but from peace. I told her, you're free to go. Always. But if you choose to stay, know this, I will protect this bond with everything I am, but I won't beg for it. I'll show up every day. I'll lead. I'll listen. I'll hold you in storms, but I will never again abandon myself to hold on to someone else. And she smiled. Because that's exactly the kind of man she had been searching for. So if you're still wondering how to become the man she'll never leave, stop focusing on her. Focus on you. The broken parts. The patterns. The lies you tell yourself. The weakness you keep calling personality. The laziness you keep calling burnout. The anger you keep calling masculinity. Burn it all down. And from those ashes, rebuild something solid. Something rare. Something you would follow if you met yourself in the mirror. Because a man like that, he doesn't just attract love. He keeps it. Not through force. Not through fear. But through presence. Through unwavering, grounded, daily presence. She won't leave that. Because she knows, it's not just a man she has beside her. It's a foundation. There's a moment, somewhere in every man's life, where he stands alone. No one is watching. No woman to impress. No crowd to applaud. Just him. The dark. And the truth. That moment is everything. Because in that silence, you meet the man you've been avoiding. The one behind the mask. The one behind the lies. The one who's tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of chasing love he doesn't even give to himself. I stood there. And I asked myself, if she never came back, who would I be? Would I still wake up at dawn to train my discipline? Would I still speak with calm and conviction? Would I still hold the door, speak the truth, build the life I promised myself? Or was all of this just another act, another way to win someone? And I knew in my bones, this had to be for me. Because if it wasn't, I'd lose it the moment she turned away. That's why most men fail. They become better to win her. Not for their own soul. And when she doesn't come back, or when she does, but still isn't impressed, they break. They crumble. Because their growth was never real. It was bait. It was a trick. But when you do it for yourself, when you climb that mountain for your own view, not someone else's applause, something changes. You don't just become a man she'll never leave. You become the man who will never leave himself again. That's the power. That's the freedom. And you start to see relationships differently. You stop asking, will she stay? You start asking, do I show up as the kind of man I respect? Not once a week. Every day. Every hour. In public. In private. In your thoughts. Because women don't leave men who respect themselves. And you know what else? They don't stay with men who don't. You can fake charm. You can fake kindness. You can fake ambition. But you can't fake respect for yourself. It bleeds through your eyes. Your posture. Your words. Your energy. And she feels it. The more I grew, the more I noticed, I needed less. I needed fewer arguments. Fewer explanations. Fewer promises. Because my life spoke for itself. And the right woman didn't need convincing. She just needed to see me. Consistently. Fully. Quietly powerful. And so I made peace with being alone forever if that's what it meant. Not in bitterness. In clarity. I would rather walk alone in truth than be worshipped in illusion. I would rather build a life of meaning than perform for the approval of someone who doesn't see me. That's when everything shifted. Not because I found the one. But because I became the one, for myself. And that man? He doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He doesn't blame. He builds. He builds peace. He builds trust. He builds a life so full, so real, so solid, that if she chooses to walk away, he lets her go, in love and strength. Because she wasn't the purpose. She was a gift. And gifts are not owned. They are honored. So if you want to be the man she'll never leave, remember this. She is not your reward. She is your reflection. She reflects your strength, your clarity, your chaos, your presence, your purpose. And if you don't like what you see in her eyes, don't try to change her. Change yourself. Lead yourself. Forgive yourself. Discipline yourself. Love yourself deeply enough that the world, the woman, the future, they're all drawn to you, but never needed by you. Because a man who needs nothing is free. And a man who is free, he's the one they never want to leave.